Hi, Kathy Brennan here, helping you to look better, feel better, and do better. Today I'm going to talk about some destructive voices in your mind, in your head, and what you can do about that. So what do you hear in your head when things are uncertain or difficult? Well, I know what I've got. I've got some destructive voices that cause trouble, and I want to talk about those today. Do you hear positive things, or are you prone also to doom and gloom, or one of these two? These voices are hard to silence when I'm weak or tired or hungry or sick. They speak really loud. They actually sidetrack my thinking and they change how I behave. Pretty soon, before I know it, I'm griping about people or lashing out at others out of arrogance or this bad place. So I want to tell you about the two voices. They're two cousins, and they're not good. The first one is ego. Now, we all have an ego. It defines our self-esteem or our self-worth, and it can be good. It is the I. It justifies my actions and my thoughts. But my ego sometimes thinks I'm always right. Whatever I'm thinking about, I'm right. Like if I'm thinking about a conversation I had with someone and it didn't go well, I lay in bed at night and think, well, I did this and I did that and I'm right and they're wrong. That's my ego speaking. Let's talk about the ego because it's incapable of a couple things, three things. Who doesn't want to be right all the time? Well, people who are mature enough to know that they are not always right. People who want to get other people's perspectives and learn from other people. Those are the people that are okay not being right all the time. But the ego is incapable of not being right. The ego always has to define itself as being right. Who likes to admit that they're wrong? Well, people who enjoy learning. If they hear something else, a new fact or a new opinion, and they're like, wow, I didn't understand that. Tell me more about what you're saying because I want to learn. See, the ego is not capable of learning. The ego believes it is right now, and it will always be right. Who thinks of other people more than themselves? Well, those that are humble, those who are looking out and listening and paying attention to those around them. Well, the ego is incapable of that. The ego is always thinking about itself. So when I'm threatened or I feel weak or uncertain, my ego, that voice, can start to speak very loudly. And if my ego is wounded, it can start to tell me that I'm hopeless and things will never get better. The ego, it can be a very destructive and loud voice. The second voice that speaks loudly is fear. Fear is a very big motivator for many, many people. Don't feel bad if you act on fear. It grabs we want to grab control of things that we're not in control of. That's just fear trying to grab at things. Fear is dished up to us in the media, on the news, the 24-hour news channels. Fear is like a sugar cookie. It's decorated well and it's hard to resist. But like a sugar cookie, a steady diet of it is very bad for us. We won't be healthy and it won't go well. Fear also pokes at our natural curiosity. We're curious about a flood in a neighboring town or a car accident. Do I know who is in it? So we naturally have this curiosity, and then we can get into self-preservation mode. Well, I better stay in my house so I never get in a car accident. Or I better watch the weather every hour of the day to make sure there's not a tornado in my town. So curiosity sucks us in, and then we go into these bad places. The other thing is we've gotten used to it. So we're just living with a lot of fear in our mind and our heart just because we hear it so often. Fear, this destructive voice, it replaces hope, and it replaces excitement, and it replaces promise. But it also limits our lives. So these two destructive voices, ego and fear, how can we make this better? How can we silence those voices? Well, the main thing is to simply be aware. Be aware of what you're thinking about. Think about what you're thinking about. When your mind says, well, I did this right and I did that right, well, start to be aware. I don't think, Kathy, that you're always right. Why don't you look at that in a different way? Be discerning about when you're thinking about a conversation you had, or you're thinking about a potential fear or potential disruption. Be discerning. How likely is that really to happen? What was really said? Think about it in a new way. Be self-reflective. Look at, what was your tone of voice? What was my tone of voice? What was my motive? Where was I coming from? Maybe they were just reacting and being defensive because I was attacking, for example. And that takes courage. So when we have to look at ourselves, or when we do look at ourselves, we don't have to. We can let these voices take control. But when we do take the courageous step of being self-reflective, being discerning, looking at really the facts of what happened, that can begin to silence ego and fear. I see silencing ego as putting a lion in a cage. The lion, it can be destructive. It's also kind of beautiful, but I need to put it in a cage if I want to live free of its destructive power. Then I'm free to listen to other people without having to defend and say that I'm right and give my opinion. I'm free to love other people without having to be right and be most important and I'm the one that needs to be loved. I'm free when I can put that ego in a cage. And fear, I see fear, putting fear aside or taming that is like shutting the door. Shutting the door to all the noise and all the constant chatter of this bad thing could happen or that bad thing can happen. And when we shut that door and stop listening to all that noise by paying attention to what we're listening to, by being discerning enough, like they're just feeding me a bunch of fear right now. When we shut that door, we can act on all the possibilities. We can do what we believe is best, not act and react to some potential that most likely will never happen. Fear and ego. It's really possible to let go of these and to manage them, but first we need to be aware of them. And when you do be aware of them and put the ego in a cage and close the door on fear, you can live a more peaceful life. Your actions will be out of love and humility and learning and growth instead of defensiveness and destruction. Put those harmful voices to bed. I hope this helps. Enjoy the day and work on putting those two voices in their place. Be well.